Okay, I think that we can start this presentation. The presentation will be done by Benoit Cusson, who is a co-founder of Bayer Libre, and the presentation will be about PowerCI org infrastructure. Please go forward. Yeah.
Can you? Oh yes, that's fine. Can you hear me correctly? Yeah. So I'd rather warn you. I mean, some people are pretending that I have a strong accent in English and that I am speaking fast. So they're just a bunch of liars. But so if you have any issue understanding me, I mean, I can try to repeat or slow down. Is that okay so far? Okay, so today I'm going to talk about PowerCI.org. So PowerCI basically.org is an initiative started by Bayer Libre to do product development continuous integration loop on top of basically kernelci.org. But I mean, let's start by the most important thing, meaning presenting myself. So my name is Benoit Cusson, and okay, that's not really me, but that could have been me. I've been doing basically embedded software for more than 25 years. And so at that time, I mean, in 80, I was somehow a little bit like that, and hacking as well on computer like that. I'm not like that anymore. So basically, in the past 25 years, I mostly work on the low-level hardware company. So I spent 10 years at Texas Instruments. I used to work for Philips, for NXP, and I was always doing low-level stuff. And the past 10 years, basically, I've focused only on Linux, kernel driver, power management, and this is my expertise. 3 years ago, basically, with a couple of friends that are all fan of Linux, we started Bayer Libre, so which is basically a consulting company doing Linux. And most important, so I'm living in the south of France, Riviera, the French Riviera. Oh, okay, sorry. Let's go back to this is French Riviera today, not the 80s. So that picture is kind of cool, especially today, because it brings a lot of sun to St. Petersburg that is kind of missing today. Okay, let's start talking about the real stuff. So we can wondering, okay, why do we need QA, for the mainline Linux? I mean, if you think about that, I mean, Linux have been there for 25 years now, and we've never used any QA, and it looks like we've never had any issue. So why do we need QA right now? Well, the answer is kind of simple. Because the mainline kernel sucks. That's a simple answer. And that's really true. I mean, if you don't believe me, I mean, that's sad, but true. So this is the point. I mean, the kernel sucks right now. Okay, you might maybe want me to elaborate a little bit. What does it suck that much? I mean, well, if you look basically what is happening today, no one is ever using the mainline kernel to build any cool product. Okay, let's take that phone. It's a 6 months old phone. And that phone is using a 3.13 or 3.10 kernel, so meaning a 3 years old kernel. And it's the same if you look on every basically embedded product, you will never ever find, I mean, the latest and greatest kernel. And that's why, I mean, it sucks. So, and the issue is that why it sucks that basically there is a huge variety of hardware and nobody is ever testing basically the Linux mainline on all the hardware. And okay, in order to understand why it's like that, the talk will mostly focus on the ARM ecosystem. I mean, the reason is simple, is that 99% of the embedded devices right now are using the ARM ecosystem. So Intel tried to do a little bit of that, but kind of failed. So we'll focus on the ARM ecosystem to understand why basically mainline sucks that much. So basically, this is the ARM ecosystem long time ago, meaning 20 years. So what happened, basically, ARM defined the cool, basically, RISC architecture 25 years ago. But at that time, I mean, it was just a small, I mean, British company doing its own core. And then they started, basically, selling the IP, the core. And it was starting being adopted by a couple of big, basically, players. So you have Texas Instruments, you have Qualcomm, NVIDIA, ST. And it was so cool that, basically, more and more people were starting using the ARM core. And it ended up being... Basically, if you look today, this is the exact number. Okay, I think there is one logo for each ARM platform supported by the kernel right now. So it's about 30, basically, ARM SoCs that are supported by the kernel. And if you look, basically, the ARM site, ARM is even claiming that they are selling 200, more than 200, basically, ARM license to SoC manufacturer. So there are even more, basically, SoC out there than this one. but these ones are the ones supported by the kernel. And it's already a big, so you can see that, so you have at least 30 different basically SoC using the ARM architecture. And if you consider that with one SoC, let's take Qualcomm, you can build maybe 10 or 20 different products using the same SoC. So you take basically the 30 SoC, multiply by 10 or 20, and you end up basically with almost 1,000 boards that are all different, that all have, they can share the same SoC, but at the end the board is different. The hardware is different. It means that Linux will run differently on all these hardware. And you have a big, huge amount of board that nobody can, basically nobody have all these board. So just to give you a little bit, so some official number. So this is done by Arne Bergman, so one of the ARMSOC maintainers. So if you look basically, so okay, we will focus mostly on the yellow part, so meaning the device tree machine. So device tree basically started in a 3.0 kernel version. So it was in 2011, so this is 5 years old. So if you look basically 5 years old, we have 0 board supported, and we are now at version 4.8, and we have almost, 1,000 board supported by the Linux kernel. So that's a lot of board. And so the issue with that nobody basically got all these board. There is no way someone can own all these board. So basically, that's why, this is a simple formula as well. No PhD for that one. You have a huge amount of board, available, 1,000. You have a huge community because everybody, basically, every SoC vendor, every board manufacturer, a bunch of freelance guys are pushing, basically, the new code. They want to have new frameworks. They want to have a bunch of new stuff in the kernel. And they're all pushing that at the same moment. So at the end, you end up with a huge mess. You have basically tons of people pushing tons of support for board. Oh, because just to go back, if you look basically the ramp, it means that for every kernel version, we have 40 new boards added to the kernel. So that's so 40 new boards. So that generate, a lot of mess, and that's kind of hard. So and basically, knowing all that mess, how do you want a product basically developer to use the mainline? It will be crazy to use the mainline, knowing that it will probably crash, it will not work at all on its platform, and it will take him months, to fix that. And to understand basically why a product developer cannot use the mainline to do that, let me explain you a little bit how a product developer is working today. Okay, so you are a cool startup or cool company and you want to build a product. So if you are small, you won't want to save time. So basically you will go to a platform vendor and you will buy it can be a SOM or it can be a SBC, like BeagleBone. You will buy that board because you know that the code is already available, so it will minimize the amount of code you will have to write. The point is that, okay, how the platform vendor is writing the code. You need to know that. So basically the vendor, he's that guy, is himself, basically buying the silicon from a big silicon vendor, let's say Qualcomm. And basically, if you look what Qualcomm is doing, okay, Qualcomm will take the LTS, the long-term support version of the kernel, so in that case 3.10, he will take the stable version and he will start developing, at least 1,000 patches to support all the great features of the Qualcomm device. That's a great device, but with a lot of patches. So on top of that, basically, the guy who is doing the platform, he will add the support for the platform itself. So the platform can have a LCD screen, but it can have, a regulator, a couple of components that the guy will add as well. And on top of that, the guy who is doing the product, okay, he still have to do a little bit of work to add the support for its own product. So it will have its own LCD, its own camera, its own whatever, super cool sensor. So what is happening is that, okay, by being on the stable branch, okay, it's kind of easy, to each time there is a new release, you can just rebase on the latest. So you will have, the latest fixes that are on the stable. You can do that, Not all, every vendors are doing that, but you can do that. But what is happening really? So this is what the bad, but let's say a regular product developer is doing, because there are way more regular or bad developers than we thought. So what is happening is that the stable is kind of cool, but the stable in theory is supposed to last 2 years, no more than 2 years. So what will happen basically? When, okay, in case of 3.10, that guy is lucky because it's been there for 3 years, but anyway. When basically the stable branch will reach the end of life, well, the guy, is kind of stuck forever. Because can you imagine, he started at 3.10, now we are at 4.3, 4.8, and the guy has all that amount of patches on top basically of the product, of the branch he choose, there is no way the guy, can port all that to that. It will require a huge amount of effort, and so he will never do that. So that's why today you can find a bunch of products, like network products that are still using 2.4 kernel, for example, or 3.0 kernel, or 2.6, a bunch of 10 years old, sometimes 5 years old kernel, and it will last forever, and we are fucked. So what can basically a good product developer can do? So this is a good product developer. So a good product developer can say, oh man, I want to have the latest and greatest upstream. So if I want to do that, I need to contribute because I'm a good guy. I'm not like this bad, product developer who are doing nothing, taking the kernel and just contributing at all. So I'm a good guy, so I will do that. But to be honest, the product developer, if you look what he has done, he has done that, but the point, he took all that stuff from the vendor. So even if the product developer is kind of cool, he will have some hard time to submit that upstream. So the only way it can work is that if the product developer is named Google or Nokia, when Nokia was great, because then what these guys were doing, they were pushing basically the SOC vendor and the SOM vendor to say, okay, guys, please submit all your stuff upstream. We want, we want your SOC to be upstream in order for us, to push upstream all our code and basically to be able, to migrate easily to the newer version. So it needs some support from the SOC vendor, and if you are not Google or big or Samsung, it's kind of hard for you to ask that. You can try, but it will be hard. But okay, let's consider that the guy is good enough, and he has convinced basically everybody, the silicon vendor, the platform vendor, to push all the stuff upstream. So that's already a small percentage of chance that it can happen, but it can happen. Oops, missing some point. So yeah. The point that even if the guy is doing a pretty good job, at the time he will submit upstream and he will want basically to reuse the upstream code for the product, then there are as well tons of other guys. You remember the super active community and all the competitor potentially, they are all doing potentially the same and they are all pushing basically their code to the mainland kernel. So basically when he will use the latest mainland kernel, most of the stuff will be probably broken because he wanted to use some framework, but some smart guy probably introduced new framework or some new features that will break power management, that will break, he can break everything. So basically, even if the guy is doing a super good job, he will still have issue, to use the mainland kernel. So basically, what is the solution? The solution is kind of easy, not that easy, but the point basically is that the only way to ensure that the mainland kernel is always running fine on new hardware is basically to do quality assurance and to use continuous integration on a huge variety of products to ensure at least, okay, that's your product, but if everybody is doing that with their own product, then you will ensure that your product is always basically running fine on the latest kernel. And it will really minimize your effort when you will want basically to build a new product or to start a new product reusing your previous platform. You can switch basically to upstream pretty easily because you know potentially that 80 or 90% of the functionality of your code, previous product, will be supported on the latest mainline. You will avoid basically all the pain of the guy who is not doing that. Okay, so just a little bit of what is continuous integration. Okay, sorry. So how does it work? Each time basically Linux kernel or developer basically is developing some new code, you will basically get the new code. So it can be from Git tree or from mailing list. You will take the latest code. You will check. So we'll check basically if it's properly written, if it follows all the convention. You will build it. You will boot it. You will test, run a bunch of tests. And if you care about performance and power, you will do that as well. So if everything is going well, then the guy is kind of happy because the job is done. He can have some good beer time with his friend, and that's fine. But if somewhere it's failing, then the guy, he will receive a nice report, and he will need to keep working, do better job, and basically he will push new version of the code, and it will go through basically the whole process, and the job will be done only when the guy basically will reach the pass at the very end. And then, only then, you will be able to have some beer. If the guy is having beer before anyway, it will screw up the full stuff and he will write bad code. Okay, so today there are really a couple, there are really two existing solutions to handle partially that problem. So the first one is zero-day, and the second one is kernelci.org. So I'll detail both of them. Okay, so what is zero-day doing? So basically, zero-day is using a bunch of cool guys. So Pamela is in charge of the checking. So basically, she's the one who will check your code, will check if everything is fine. If it's fine, she sends the stuff to Bob. So Bob is the builder, so he's building. And if everything is fine, basically, the poor William will not have to do anything. Because most of the time, if you have done a great job, there is no report. But if one of these guys is saying, oh, there is an issue, then William will take his nice pen and he will write a nice report saying, hey, there is something wrong. So he will report basically where it is failing, and you will have to do your job again. So thanks to these cool guys, I mean, zero-day is really helpful. I mean, today, if you submit a patch, basically, if you submit a patch, if something is wrong, you will receive a nice email from zero-day. So it's probably not William, but someone close. But zero-day is doing a little bit more than that. Zero-day is as well booting. So basically, it will boot, and it will do testing and measuring. So this is Mike and John, these two cool guys, who are testing and measuring performance and power. There is one, I mean, not little, one major issue with that. This is done by Intel. So basically, the only issue is that, okay, Intel server can build ARM stuff. They can check running Coccinelle or Checkpatch. There is no issue. But I mean, come on, they cannot boot basically any ARM platform, and they will not try to, I mean, at the moment. And there is no way they can test anything because they just have Intel hardware. So this is really the major issue with zero-day. So the first part is still okay. We can still do the checking, the building, that's fine. But we cannot use that at all. Too bad. I mean, hopefully, we have another solution. So we have kernelci.org. So kernelci.org was started by a bunch of cool Linaro guys, so focusing only on ARM. And what is kernelci doing right now? Okay, kernelci basically could have done everything that zero-day was doing, but that's kind of pointless. So basically, kernelci is not checking. Zero-day is doing that already for you. Kernelci is today building, basically, is building on ARM platform. He is booting on ARM platform, and he's doing report as well. So, okay, the reason why kernelci is building as well is kind of, it will be explained a little bit later, but when zero-day is building for you, he's just building, checking if the build is broken, and that's it. I mean, he will not, if the build is successful, you will not have access to the build, the binaries, so you will not be able to reuse the binaries to start your own test. Whereas, I mean, kernelci is doing that, and it will allow the distributed basically approach. I will explain later. Well, I can explain now, by the way. So the way kernelci is organized, so zero-day is done, Intel is doing that, everything is done inside Intel Office. The whole point about kernelci.org is to have a distributed approach. I mean, the reason is kind of simple. I mean, we have thousands of boards potentially to test, and there is no way, I mean, someone, even Linaro or ARM can own all these boards. So by construction, kernelci was completely distributed. So basically, that's why kernelci is building, and as soon as the build is done, all the lab basically, I mean, assuming that they do have the proper platform, every lab can use the binary that was compiled, and they can basically start running tests. And okay, it's kind of interesting. If you look today, you have on one side the huge Intel doing other stuff. Here, this is mostly basically small Linux shop like us. We have basically two labs, like Free Electron, Embedded Bigs, Pengutronics, and Linaro. This is already, today, I mean, it's a bunch of small somehow companies. I mean, some are bigger than others, who are basically owning the lab and owning the board. Oh, by the way, yeah, I don't know if you know what the lab is, because I know that some of you guys are from the server world, so let me show you what the lab is. This is how we were doing a lab, I mean, long time ago, 6 months ago in our case. So basically, this is somehow a lab. So you can see we have board, so Renesas, whatever, a bunch of board from the SoC manufacturer or from the board manufacturer. We have a PC, we have a switch, we have some cable here, you have some more cable here, we have some USB hub, and that's a big mess. But this is somehow how a small company is doing lab. So we can do better jobs. So this is what somehow a recent lab can look like. So it's still a lot of cable. There are a lot of cable, but at least it's a little bit more organized. And this is what we have in what kind of lab we have today. So this one is the lab in France. This one is the lab in Seattle. So okay, for some reason. Okay, everything is kind of cool, but you remember our friend Mike and John? You know, none of these guys, could do anything, at Linaro because nobody's testing and nobody's measuring at Linaro. So what about these guys? They're kind of cool and they cannot do anything. So hopefully, thanks to Bellibre, they now have a job at powerci.org. They're pretty happy with that. So now we have John. He's in charge of power and performance measurement at Bellibre. And kind of happy for his new job. So what is really basically John doing? So if you want to basically measure the power, and power is important. Okay, maybe let me go back a little bit. So we are dealing with embedded devices. So embedded devices are mostly devices that will be powered by a battery. And if you have a device powered by a battery like a smartphone, you do care about the power consumption. So you need basically on top of you need to ensure that your product is working, but you need to ensure as well that your product consumption is not too high. And in order to do that, you need to measure the power. So we develop basically in-house a solution, a super low-cost open hardware, open source solution to measure the power of different pieces of hardware. So if the hardware is supplied using jack, we have the jack probe, and if it's supplied by USB, like a mobile phone or a tablet, we have that kind of probe. So this is basically the hardware you can add in your lab, in your farm to measure power. And we provide as well some nice reporting tools. So that one is the manager view. So manager know nothing about the details. They know two colors. They know red and green. So if everything is green, the manager is happy. He can ship the product. But if you have something red here, oh man, the manager is not that happy at all. So the whole point of that view is to see, okay, during the development process is to show the manager, okay, are we on good track? Do we have issue? Because we do have targets, so if we're above the targets, that's not good. If we're below, that's okay. And if, okay, there is a third color, the manager can understand, this is the yellow, orange. It means that, okay, it does not work well, but maybe we can ship it. So manager view are kind of cool for manager, but if you are red, it means you have an issue on your system, and you need to understand why. And the manager will not do that. The engineer will do that. So the engineer, basically, we need way more detailed information. Okay, for the people who attend basically Mike's speech this morning, you really need the PhD from Mike to understand all that stuff, because the whole point of that view is really to show you the gory details about what is going on dynamically with your product, depending on the use case you are running. And this is somehow the only way you can see that, oh, there is a peak of consumption, what is going on, and then you can go deep dive into the code and try to understand why, at that moment the consumption is increasing. So this is basically what PowerCI tools is providing today. So we have a view for the manager, top level view, and we can have the detailed view for people who want to deep dive. So what about Mike? Remember, we are two good guys. So Mike is in charge of testing. Super happy as well, new job. But what does that really mean in charge of testing? That's kind of a wide area. We don't really know what that guy is doing, because testing is not, we cannot imagine that guy, really running tests, days and nights and doing that. This is not what Mike is doing, because Mike is a software developer, so he's like us, he's kind of lazy. He's not willing to run tests, every day. So he's willing to write basically scripts that will run the test for himself. So. And basically during that time, he can dream about, robot doing his work. And basically what Mike will have to do is to write automated tests, which is basically the most important thing about the continuous integration, because you want the stuff, to run all days long. Each time there is a new version, you want everything to run. You don't want to wait on the guys that will run the test on the platform. That's kind of silly. And Mike will not like that anyway. But that's a lot of work for these two guys. If you look today, basically, so the whole PowerCI infrastructure is a work in progress. So this is something we started maybe 1 year ago. And today, we are basically developing the infrastructure, so the web tool. We are developing the hard part is really to develop the test and to do that on more hardware, because you can write a test for one board and you will you will use another board and the test will not run. You will always have to do some adaptation. Each time you connect a board into the lab, you will see the form factor are different. It requires a lot of work basically to integrate all the different boards into the lab. So there are still a lot of work to do. The tools, I mean, can be improved. We are still lacking a good reporting tool. Because it's kind of nice to see that there is an issue of regression, but it will be even better, to somehow deep dive into the regression, to do automatically the BSEC, to try to figure out, okay, oh, this is that commit, it generated the change in consumption. So, and all that stuff, I mean, can be done, but it requires, I mean, a lot of work. So today we are working on that. Linaro, Kernel CI guys are working on that, and there are a couple of guys, I mean, over there that are working on that. But I mean, the more the mirror. I mean, it is really some area where somehow anybody can help. Everything is open source, open hardware, so everything is available for anybody who does care about power consumption and performance and continuous integration in general. So as these two guys are saying, I mean, any help are really welcome. And this is the end. So thanks a lot for your time. I hope it was not too boring. And as I said, I mean, this is an open initiative, and anybody is very welcome, I mean, to help on that.
Thank you very much for a nice presentation. And now it is time for questions, about 10 minutes. Okay.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. Could you please tell, would you do any of the tests except power consumption? Functional tests or anything? Do you plan on it?
You mean, what kind of?
I mean, do you only test power consumption, or are you planning on testing some functional?
Yes, I mean, yeah, okay, yeah, I kind of skipped that part, but you're right. I mean, in order to test, I mean, to do power consumption, anyway, you need to ensure that the platform is working and that the functionality is there. So I focus here more on power, but you're right. I mean, in order to do power, basically measurement, we need to run, I mean, regular tests, and we need to ensure that the platform is functional as well. So indeed, the idea is to run functional tests, and on some of the critical tests, like it can be, idle, suspend, MP3 playback, Bluetooth idle. On this dedicated test, I mean, we are measuring power. But you're right. I mean, the idea is really to be able to run a lot of functional tests as well, and on some of them to measure the power.
Do you open those tests as well? Are they open? Those tests?
Yeah, this is the idea. Well, today we are already using some infrastructure. For example, Intel, is doing the LTP. You have some performance tests. You have LMBench. There are already a couple somehow of tests, available around there. The plan is to run them. The kernel CI is trying as well to run this test. And today, I mean, the point is that, as I said, I mean, the issue is not running the test today. Is really to put the automation around this test. To run the test, to gather the data, and to do some, report. To check the diff between the previous, run and that run. And the difficulty is really there today. It's to put automation around all these tests.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for the talk. You mentioned LTP, so it's a really good project. And do you run LTP whole tests of LTP, because it takes really long if you want to run all the tests in LTP project? Well,
and the issue today as well is that these tests as well are somehow based on Intel. I mean, they were developed by Intel, and there are as well a lot of dependency. So today there is a team inside Linaro who is working basically on adapting the test to allow them to run on ARM platform. Because today, I mean, we have limitation. I mean, the fact that it was developed by Intel, they didn't pay attention about all the details, but it does not necessarily work properly, does not build properly, and so there are some ongoing effort as well. There are at least 2 guys at Linaro who presented some stuff last year to help, migrating the whole infrastructure to ARM platform.
Mm-hmm. And how long it takes to run all the tests on the board?
Today we've never run, I mean, all these tests on the board.
No.
Well,
for your boards.
Well, it really depends because we are focusing since the Linaro guys are focusing on running regular tests. I mean, our focus and our expertise is power management. So basically, we are focusing more on trying to run suspend, idle, and like MP3 playback. And for this kind of test, potentially, I mean, within 1 minute, you put for suspend, you put the system into suspend. You wait a little bit, you measure the power. It can last one second, and that's it. So this kind of power tests, I mean, are not necessarily super long. But if you want, I mean, sometimes we might as well, I mean, being able to measure, for example, if you want to check the battery duration, we might want, I mean, to run, the test for 24 hours just to see how long the battery, will last. And it really depends on the test and what you'd like to measure and to show.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. You want to comment?
This actually isn't a question, but it's an open source project, and so going back to the question about functional tests, right? Our interest at Belibra is a lot of it's around power management, but I mean, we would really love it if people would contribute to the project if they're interested in doing functional testing for video playback or for rendering some 3D graphics or stuff like that. That's actually really hard to test, right? Like hooking up a webcam and actually looking at a display or sampling frames coming out of HDMI. If people are interested in that, that would be a wonderful collaboration, I think.
Thanks for your talk. As we know, Linaro supports 96 boards specification. Do their boards are their boards better on your CI than others? So do they have better support on more tests or something like that?
Not, I mean, as a matter of fact, we discussed a couple of years ago with Linaro to be able to add some power measurement, into the board itself, and somehow they didn't want. I mean, they wanted to do that, but since it increased the price of the board, and the goal was to have a super low-cost board, they didn't add any basically power measurement functionality. So we can still measure the power on surf board, but we need to put external basically probe, and we don't have the full visibility. So what is kind of cool when you are, when you want to debug power issue, you can check, the battery consumption, but you have one rail and you do not understand, where, the consumption, where the energy is going. So what is really good is to have a board with visibility inside, Then you are able to check if this is the main sock who is consuming power, if it's the LCD screen, if it's the memory or whatever, part of the board. And this is the ideal, the best case situation for power measurement. And basically the CAPE can support up to 8 measurements in parallel. And so that's why, the idea for us is to try to convince board manufacturers to add the test point into the board. But in the case of 96 board, they didn't. They didn't want to do that for a cost reason.
Thank you. Next question.
Thank you for your talk once again. My first question is, how many board models are being tested right now on PowerCI? And my second question is, how often do you find some serious regressions or bugs in kernel?
So okay, today, so as I said, PowerCI is still, it's a new initiative. So and we are using the kernel CI infrastructure. So today, kernel CI is supporting up to 200 boards. But most of the point that on these 200 boards, they are mostly booting the boards. They do not go further. And on top of that, basically, we are focusing today, on the couple of boards that, if you remember the lab, the first Messi lab I saw you, we have a couple of boards, that does have, the power measurement equipment, and only a couple of them today are running a test. So it's pretty small, and for the moment, so we use that infrastructure for a smartwatch project. So we were working with a smartwatch manufacturer, and he had issue. The battery was supposed to last 24 hours, and it was lasting less. So basically, we use this infrastructure to debug the issue with that guy. But as I say, so the tool today is good, because we have the visualization, but the tricky part, we still do not have, the automatic, basically regression detection and all that stuff. This is still something that is in progress. Today we can check the regression because, between two measurements, but then, we still need to deep dive manually to figure out, okay, what is going on and all that stuff. And so far, we are doing that on maybe 2 boards because we need to focus on this board because customers are working on this board and are asking us some help.
Thank you.
Thank you. And one more question from you now. Okay. Do we have more question? Еще вопросы на русском языке? Okay. Okay, so please don't forget to put the marks for the presentations on this on the page in the notebook. That you definitely will collect this after the last presentation that she left. And please think about plans for evening, because we are going to go to the restaurant to the restaurant downstairs to grab some beer and probably continue discussion just after the very last presentation. And now let's say thank you once more time to Benoit.
Thank you for your time, and don't forget, I mean, you can have a beer. I mean, there is still one talk, but after you can have a beer.